Tony, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on. How's the back?
Yeah. Look, thank you very much. I've come here for some therapy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you come to the right place. We can give you a pill. Hey, listen, mate. One of the things that clearly Wellington civil servants are doing, and at your council, and thank you for sending all that through, and we'll talk about it now, is they're clearly trying to remove the governance or the governors from governance. Is that right? Because you've come up with new protocols as to the information that you can and cannot have at your council. I'm talking about elected members prior to making decisions, and it will be determined by the staff what information you can and cannot have. Could you take me through that, please?
Yes, we were informed in April that we've had a new set of protocols that have been in place since last year. And under those protocols, the officers have said that we can have information about an upcoming decision, but, if there's other stuff, we have to go and explain to them why we need that information, about either past decisions or something that they're not talking about at the moment. And if they don't think that's appropriate to the role of a councillor, they'll say, no, you can't have it.
So, in other words, you've also got, as a practical example of that, I understand a legal opinion around the sale of shares at Wellington Airport, which is available to the staff. But just take me through that. Is it available to you as elected member or not, despite having been commissioned by the Wellington City Council?
No. So another councillor, Councillor McNulty, who is broadly opposed the share sale and voted against it, he's asked for the legal advice, and that's always wise when you're coming to a big decision, is to make sure you've got the legal advice that supports it. And the officer's saying, no, you can't have it. That's a legal privilege. It's almost like telling a councillor, it is telling a councillor that you're not the council, which to me is an oxymoron. We are the council.
And you're in charge of everything. You make the policy and you that policy. Why on earth wouldn't you be able to get the legal advice that's available to your staff?
That's exactly where I'm coming from as well. I'm actually got my own issues. I'm trying to get at some information about the Reading deal. We've discovered that there's, this hasn't really been explained, but there's actually an independent report, and that independent report is being denied to me.
My God!
Initially, this is the interesting thing. Initially, when the Reading deal was still under negotiation, it was promised to me, and then when they cancelled the Reading deal, literally an hour later, they told me I can't have it now. And because there's no more decisions. That's their logic. It's their logic. Not my logic.
This is extraordinary. Can I say we had a very similar argument in the council and at Otago when I was and I led the charge on that one. This would be about a year or two ago, Tony. And so I got the backing from almost all of the council, to be fair. In fact, I think it was unanimous that any legal advice that is made available to staff is automatically made available to the elected members as well, on a confidential basis, of course.
Of course.
Do you need a motion around the council table to instruct your chief executive to free that advice up?
Well, I think we're building up towards that. And, as I say, we were told about this in April, and initially we thought, well, what does this mean? But it's only when you ask for information and you say, no, you can't have it, that's not part of your role, that's when the anger kicks in and you say, this is wrong. And it's now hit the news cycle. I don't proactively put this backroom stuff out there, but it certainly needs to be discussed now because, we're really seeing we're being censored, essentially.
Yes, no, you are. It's extraordinary. Listen, I've talked about it a lot on this program. It's one of, I guess, my themes is that in local government in New Zealand, which has increasing power and increasingly the power to levy financial dues through rates and other charges of ordinary public members, that the staff are out of control. boy, Wellington seems to be proving that in spades. Do you think that this attitude that you have around the Wellington City Council is throughout the rest of New Zealand as well, or is it just a particular Wellington ideology?
Well, I think it's in a number of other councillors, but it's not in all councils. I heard the Mayor of Porirua talk yesterday about exactly this thing, and her approach as the Mayor says she meets the Chief Executive every day, and if members want information, they both agree to give it to them. And it's pretty well straightforward as that. So obviously there are some councils that have a much more open attitude between the officers and the councillors. So I think there's probably good councils and bad councils, and when it comes to sharing information, but we seem to, again, be leading New Zealand in yet another thing like this.
It is extraordinary. So if I'm electing a mayor and the councillors of Wellington, I'm expecting they're going to run the show. That's why I elect them. It's called democracy. But you've now got your staff that are there. None of them elected. Not one of them. All on much greater and higher salaries, of course, than you are, Tony, and your elected officials, saying we'll determine the information that goes to you. There's something quite clearly broken, isn't there?
It is, and it's very disappointing. I mean, our mayor is paid more than the Prime Minister. You know,
is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the, you know, you pay a person a lot of money because it's a stressful job and they have to be really good at it.
Yeah.
And different chief executives are good in different ways, but I have to say that, and I'm not criticising the chief executive. This is a whole set of things that have been put together by a whole group of officers, but it's the overall control of the agenda that's always chafed and has always been a concern at the Wellington City Council, and it's one of the reasons I decided to jump into this pit and try and have my say more directly. But now I'm frustrated because of these new rules. So remember, the public gets blocked, and now as a councillor you also get blocked.
Well, here's the next issue. Who came up with the protocols? Did you decide as a council, this is the elected councillors, that these protocols should be in place?
The history is that there was a previous argument actually about getting at legal advice from the previous council, and what happened was there was an agreement to go and work out some protocols, but of course what was skipped was the point about saying, well, here's a draft protocol, talk about it with councillors, talk about it with the mayor, let's workshop this thing to see how it's going to work. That was totally skipped. We were just informed, it's been implemented last October. And we were told this in April. So it was like put in by officers, and then they started doing it. And after the fact, they decided to tell us how they were working out what we can get.
But here's the irony. You can't get information or certain information because the staff say, well, we just don't think you need that information. And yet if you put a request under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, Lagoima request, you can get it. Is that right? You just won't get it immediately.
Well, that's actually what I've asked, and that's what I'm waiting for. You know, I talked about this information from the Reading deal, and I've asked for it under Lagoima. Yeah. And again, it's taken forever. It's actually 3 months since I asked for it now, and they've promised to give it to me next week. So we'll see what happens as to whether or not I actually get any information, because they won't tell me. Well, in addition to which, we'll see how much has been redacted, Tony. Yeah, of course, and but in the end, there's this whole principle that we are ultimately responsible. It's what we elected for. It's a $1 billion business with a $1 billion capital program to invest, and when officers go and execute these things, good projects or bad projects, we are ultimately accountable to tell the ratepayers this is where your money went. And certainly Wellington City Council spends a lot of money. 2 weeks ago, I had the Mayor of Nelson on the show, Nelson's City Council, Nick Smith, of course, who spent, 20 years in Parliament, 30 years in Parliament. I can remember going in with him. And as a Cabinet Minister, and he said this is a real issue throughout local government New Zealand. He said he didn't realise how bad it was until he got to be Mayor himself. He's obviously had those discussions, disputes, and I'll tell you what, arguments, I suspect, with his own Chief Executive on this issue. And he said this would never happen at a central government level. Ministers would not be denied information that they need, nor Parliament itself.